Welcome to the second part of the Living Manifesto Festival 2021. Today we present the dialogue between guest speakers Worre, Hallberg and Akeim Toussaint book on the topic Making Art More Accessible and Available. We will invite you to ask questions during the final 15 minutes of the event, and you may raise your hand or use the raise hand function to speak, or you may write your question in the chat. We will try to get through as many questions as possible within the time frame. Please be aware that this event is being recorded. So if you do not wish to appear in the recordings, you may switch off your camera. Thank you for joining and enjoy the talk. Now I will pin you, Gry, and then you can start. I will also make you host, so you can share.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just take over from here, I guess. And thank you, first of all, of course, for the invitation. Appreciate it, and I really look forward to have a dialogue with you, Akeim. And it seems like we are in a small, intimate group here. So hopefully that means we will be maybe, allowed to have a chance to actually have a really valuable talk together in this small forum. So I also think, everyone can consider when we have the dialogue, what they want to chip in with, as we are so few here. So I'm Worre Hallberg. I'm the artistic director of a performance group called Sisters Hope. I'm in my I live in the garden house currently. That's a very small house, and we have 5 people in it, me and my partner and our 3 kids. And the kids were not sleeping, so that's why I went outside and I put a lamp, and I have electricity, so I should be fine. I'm connected through the phone because the Wi-Fi is really poor, but I brought the lamp, and that's already good, because just since we had the check, the sky has turned darker and darker behind me, so that's probably good. But also so I'll do this small presentation. I have some slides I want to share to show the visuality of my work, so that it's easier for people who don't know the work to understand it, this part of it. And so therefore I will actually I will share my screen now, so hopefully that goes well. Yeah, and view. Oh, what is it? Yeah, so that's you. Okay, so Sisters Hope is a performance group that I initiated with my poetic twin sister back in 2007. That's why it's called Sisters Hope, because it was initiated with my poetic twin sister. Not because it's particularly focused on women. So in the beginning, it was her and I doing these very symbiotic, ritualistic experiences together of going out into different contexts in the city, in the countryside, doing rituals primarily for ourselves to stimulate a more sensuous and poetic mode of being, because we were longing a lot for that. And then that grew, and now it's a quite large performance group and movement, I would say, as well, because many people kind of feels that the ideas behind Sisters Hope resonates with them. So Sisters Hope is based on a manifest. The work currently is based on a manifest called the Sensuous Society Manifesto. And this manifesto was written in 2008 as a response to the financial crisis of 2008, and as a response to the ongoing ecological crisis that has just intensified since then. And it could also very much be seen as a response to the current biological crisis, or the health crisis we are currently immersed in, and also as a response to the social crises of, for example, discrimination. So everything that is like rooted in separative thinking, it kind of can be seen as a response and an alternative to that. So the manifesto suggests a potential future world that moves beyond the dominance of economic rationality, which has dominated the world for a while, and which has led to these different dysfunctionalities, both on mental, social, and environmental levels. And so it suggests that what would happen if we move beyond this current paradigm into a society that's based in the aesthetic paradigm. And by aesthetic, I mean sensuous. So a paradigm that takes its starting point in the arts, in a more sensuous and poetic mode of being in the world. And the idea is actually born out of like historical circumstances, because the dominating paradigm of society has changed several times. Once the religious dimension governed, then the political, now the economic. So why don't we move into a new paradigm where the arts is the governing principle? That's reasonable. It could very well happen. So if this happened, it would change society completely, because everything from schools to family life to the criminal sector, the health sector, would take its starting point in the values of the artistic paradigm, or of the values of the sensuous and poetic. So the question that we pose in Sisters Hope when we do our performances is, how would different aspects of society be like if we were living in a sensuous society? So if we were future researchers or scientists, we would describe it as a scenario only, but because we are performance artists, we kind of donate our bodies to this idea and explore these different aspects of the sensuous society when we manifest our performances. And yeah, we use sound, light, and scenography and interactive performance art to transform different institutions into immersive, sensuous, and poetic parallel universes. So we work with immersion because we want to transport people in to a space, another worldly space, where they can liberate, you know, this the dominance of the status quo of everyday life, and reconsider and relive the way they are in the world based on new principles. And we also work interventionists. So for example, this picture is in the City Hall, Copenhagen, which is a political power center, where we start the project or manifestations of the sensuous city, which is exploring the city of a sensuous society. So, oh, let's see. Okay, now, yeah. So yeah, I also wrote a PhD thesis recently that I defended this spring. Here it is. So it's a big book, and it was very, it felt really good, both to have time to write it, because that's another thing, you know, as an artist, very often you end up in this kind of seriality of productions, and you produce, and then you have a little period of cool down, and then you produce again. So sometimes there is not this very, very long extended time for deep thinking. And for me, writing this thesis gave me some moments of experiencing that which was like diving in theory, and it was a very inspiring experience. But the conclusion of the PhD is actually that, so it's called Sensuous Society Carving the Path Towards a Sustainable Future. And then there is the subtitle, Through Aesthetic and Habitation Stimulating Ecologic Connectedness. So the argument is that the sensuous does support a more sustainable future, and therefore politicians and everyone else should look more towards the arts, because it presents a space where the sensuous and poetic is accessible. And now we come a little bit to the topic of today, making art more accessible. But so, and also what I found when I read a lot of the notebooks. So in Sisters Hope, people are giving notebooks, like audiences that we call participants. When they arrive, they get notebooks and they donate them to our archive when they leave. And we have thousands of these, and I read 800. And what was surprising was that in so many of them, people talk about connectedness, that they feel connectedness on a very profound level. And simultaneously, I was reading ecological theory. And in ecological theory, connectedness is the key word, because if we understand that everything is connected, we cannot destroy our surroundings. And that goes both on a mental, a social, and an environmental level again. And then it's called through aesthetic and habitation, stimulating ecologic connectedness. So my argument is that in order to stimulate this ecologic connectedness, we must maybe move in. So we have had this paradigm, art paradigm of spectatorship, where we watch the art from the outside. And we have moved into the artistic paradigm of participation, where we participate in the art temporarily. But now I argue that we must maybe move into a new artistic paradigm called inhabitation, where we create spaces where people can inhabit the arts more permanently. And so that relates to today's topic. So my suggestion is that we create these spaces for aesthetic inhabitation, both spaces, but also practices, practice that people can integrate into their everyday life to evoke the sensuous and poetic beyond the artistic institutional space. And then, of course, Sisters Hope also work interventionist, moving into the city hall or moving into schools, and work with this notion of democratizing the aesthetic, opening the access to the sensuous and poetic to as many people as possible. And so now we have, so what I'm really excited about right now is we've been given a space for 5 years in the outskirts of Copenhagen. And it's this very humble house that you see here, but for us it's like a small castle. So it's like 350 square meters, and we are currently transforming it completely on the inside in Sisters Hope style. That is kind of heavy red drapings, thick carpets, soundscape everywhere, porcelain eggs, dimmed light. And so you can't see it on the outside, but when you enter, you really go into this other world. And it will be a 5-year performance. So for me, that's also really a chance to inhabit the arts, like create a space that you can always come at 6 in the morning before work if you live in the neighborhood, or you could fly in and stay there for 2 years to inhabit the arts, to really kind of open the access to it beyond a limited artistic production. So it is a 5-year performance that will be open night and day, and there will always be a performer to host it. So you can always check it in. You could come at 2 in the night or 6 in the morning, as I said. And yeah, it looked like this when we took over, but it's currently really, really, really being transformed. So yeah, it's these are our mood boards for Sisters Hope Home. So it's the classical sister style that you also see represented in this project, Sisters Academy, the boarding school, that I won't go much into now, but which is exploring education and the school of a sensuous society. And the takeover format, where we move into the upper secondary schools and work with the students and teachers there for 2 weeks. And working from the premise that we are now at the school of a sensuous society. And we have done this primarily in the Northern European countries. But we've only actually, explored primarily Sweden, Denmark, Greenland, Iceland. But we now have this collaboration with the Cultural Institute to take it to Russia and China and Brazil. So it's also going to be very interesting to kind of spread this global torch of the sensuous society beyond this Northern European context that we are embedded in. And this is the city hall of Denmark. As you can see on the flags, Denmark is very happy about their flags, and this is sensuous city, where we move into that space to explore. So that's interventionist again, to explore the city with participants beyond the artistic institution. Yeah, okay. I think that's my 10 minutes.
Yes, you're right, Gry.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah,
for sharing.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Then you can make me a host again, and then
yes.
Thank you. Cool. And now I can pin also a key, and then you can ask some questions.
Thank you. Gry, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your work. Really inspiring, really just it hit a few, like I resonate with a couple of things that you were saying, and your practices and things. And I wrote down some things that kind of popped out to me. I want to know more about the rituals that inspire the rituals that you and your sister started to do, and how that has I guess helped you to build the mechanics of how you integrate audiences and participants into your work.
Okay, thank you for the comments and the question, Akeim. So I think that was so from the beginning, it has really grown organically, because as you say, it was very much mine and her, like our longing. It grew out of longing, and it grew out of longing to be able to immerse together in a more sensuous and poetic mode. And we didn't find that was not offered to us. You could go to see a show, or you could go to a club, but then it's night, and it was not offered to us in everyday life. So this longing was there. So it grew out of that. And then there was at that time in the beginning of that's in the beginning of the 2000s or the zeros. I'm not exactly sure how you say that in English, but at that time, this immersive performance art scene began to grow in the Northern European countries, like these spaces where that it's no longer like a theater where you witness it from the audience chairs, but you go into it, like you penetrate the fourth wall and you can immerse in that space for days. And that was fascinating spaces for us as well. But we felt these are still embedded in an art institutional context, and it's quite limited. Like people, especially at that time, it was quite avant-garde. So people who found their way to these spaces, if we talk about democratizing the aesthetic, was not the general public, was not like, it was not like the kid living next door or something. It was a certain sort of people. And we really wanted to democratize that, because our own, what we got in those spaces was so profound. So that's why we took it into the streets, and we took it into, just so that could be the rituals. That was very kind of, in a way, simple. That could be a tea ceremony in the street, and then people walking by and just enjoying the image, because we would dress up and we would be aware that we are an image, we would be aware we are. So it was for us, but we were also aware of the scenographic image in a way we were. So that would be, in a way, that was kind of installing these small pieces, but not for no one particularly, and with no expectation at all, because it was just her and me. But then it grew also a little bit more activist, like sitting on the top of the National Bank, or placing ourselves outside d'Angleterre, which is like a luxury hotel in Copenhagen. And that just, again, happened quite organically. It wasn't like a very fixed plan. It just felt right to situate ourselves in these spaces. But then, because maybe me and her, we were so, I don't know, it's karmic sometimes, or cosmic, you sometimes meet someone and it's kind of twinship. And I think that energy kind of also transcended from us, or kind of And it became this culture of kind. So that was really ingrained from the beginning in the relationship with her, that I've been in other artistic partnerships where the energy is different. But with her and me, like the root of Sister Soap, it was such a generous and kind energy. And I think then that kind of, in a way, also like laid the ground for these rituals that we do today that are very slow, very silent, very kind, you know, in a way, it kind of maybe grew out of that. It's a really interesting question. I don't think I've actually answered it before, thought about it. So thank you. Yeah.
No worries. I love the language you just used in terms of cosmic and connection. And it actually brings me to what was going to be my last question, but I'll pose this question now. For you, does art have the power to be modern shamanic practice for your communities?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think what we do in Sister Soap is we develop like our own vocabulary, because we don't want people to interpret it into a different, like to just say, oh, that's so new age, or that's so Buddhist, or that's so, you know, like to avoid that, because art somehow presents this third space that doesn't exclude anyone, because they don't have to, you know, think about, okay, I can't go into a shamanistic practice, but it can still have that potential. It can still like have that potential of transformation, you know, a transformative potential. And then art at the same time has this kind of that it can be weird and funny and uncanny, and you know, it can be so many things at once while it's also transformative. So yeah, I think, at least to a lot of people, a lot of the responses we get from participants is that it has been a really important, profound experiences for a lot of people who participate, and that it can have transformative potential and also like healing and reparative potential. And that goes back to like this thing of stimulating connectedness, that people kind of at one point, this separative thinking that is so ingrained in the economic rationality of our time, because we are taught it's me against other humans, it's me against the planet, you know, and it's just very dysfunctional way of thinking that has led to these different crises that we are in. So when people experience this connectedness, they don't separate themselves from other humans, they don't separate themselves from the cosmic, you know, reality of our lives, that we are made of stardust, you know, we don't consider that in everyday life, but we are. And we're just like, all humans are like, it's crazy how connected we are, you know. We could have been like a particle on Jupiter or something, or just in another galaxy, you know, and we are humans on this planet. So it's really, really wild.
It's so funny you're talking about this, and my background is like on
yeah, I know. I know. I was thinking, that's like before you even presented, I was like, I'm gonna ask Akeim about his background and the cosmic perspective in his work, because of course he chose that for a reason.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I have a couple more things to say. Oh man, I forgot now. Wait. Yeah, I really enjoy hearing about your work. Yeah, I'm just gonna say I really enjoy hearing about your work. It feels like it reminds me of Extinction Rebellion. It also reminds me of there's this thing called, oh, what is it called? Can't remember what it's called exactly, but it's basically a dance session or group where people come out of work and for like 10 minutes they just dance in an office type space. And it's just having that time to come away from the rat race of things, and to connect to yourself and your body through movement. Oh yeah, this is what I was going to say as well, like what you just said about basically the survival of the fittest myth, because it is a myth, like because you know, there's been research done now that actually claims that we actually had more of a supportive nature in how, and that's actually what helped us develop and helped us evolve. You know, if we look at how trees evolved, it's because of mushrooms and fungi and how they've come together to help help with that growth. And it's a similar thing with our brain synapses and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting, the things that are pushing your work. It's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, because for my PhD, I was reading all this ecological theory, and I started with Bateson, who wrote Steps to an Ecology of Mind in 1972. And he's a biologist, actually. He's also an anthropologist and a lot of other things, but he's also a biologist. And his argument is, you know, that the most important thing in terms of like transitioning into a more sustainable future is that we develop in humans an ecology of mind. And that's a mind that understands that everything is connected. And then he said, he uses this example also from biology, that like you were mentioning mushrooms, for example, but also, and fungi, but there is also like all species throughout history that doesn't understand that to beat your environment is to beat yourself. They will distinct. Like they will eventually distinct, you know, because they cannot survive in the long run. So that's just a biological fact, you know. If you don't, like, on a very profound level, understand that destroying your surroundings is self-destruction, the species entirely will self-destruct, you know. And we are doing that right now. So, but we have our mind, we can change it, right? So that's like, we can change it because we're conscious about it, or a lot of us are conscious about it, at least, you know. So that's and then that's back to like why arts is so important, because it creates that understanding in people intuitively, not necessarily, you know, intuitively through their bodies. People begin to understand this fact of life.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me especially with people, with you having the sister house where people can come. And I guess like in the mornings or even in the evenings, they come and they can access something, and that fills their cup and allows them that time and space to reconnect with themselves outside of work. It reminds me of how some indigenous communities exist, how they have story time or dream time, or they have different rituals where they dance for certain reasons and certain purposes. And I really love and respect what you're doing. So keep it up.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you so much for this nice dialogue. I think we just go over now into your presentation, Akeim, and your artistic work. I will pin you and make you a host.
Cool.
So then,
thank you, Annika.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, so my name is Akeim Toussaint Buck. I'm the artistic director of Toussaint to Move, and I do a myriad of things. I call myself an interdisciplinary creator and performer, because I work with dance mainly, but also physical theater, beatbox, storytelling, music, filmmaking, but also interventional type art experiences where I'll go inside of a community, mainly communities where I've already developed some kind of relationship with people, and we will make something happen. So for instance, an example of this is something I call Lead Seeds, or the longer name was What Didn't You Do to Bury Me, But You Forgot That I Was a Seed. And this was it's mainly an intergenerational project where we got a group of young people and a group of elders to have a conversation about what they would imagine their neighborhood to look like in the future, and also what was the neighborhood like in the past. This manifested in a form of an exhibition of some of the kids' work. They did like these collages that they then ripped up and then pasted back together on a wall, kind of like a map, and also a performance tour, basically, of the neighborhood. So the kids collected stories from the elders that were connected to different parts of the neighborhood, and from those locations, we created a map. And then we took the audience on different points on this map. we found out some amazing things. So the neighborhood is Chapeltown, where me and Annika trained. And it just so happens that Jimi Hendrix performed there. This is one of the stories that we learned. And he was booed off stage. So yeah. So there we go. One of the elders told us that story. And it was really interesting. Anyways, I'm gonna just share this little video of some of that. Wait, this thing won't let me. Sorry. So this is wait. This is like a summary video of the first week that we did. So this group is Leeds Elders Association, and I went and visited them, and we just collect information from them, and they do like a chair dancing session every week. And that's actually my little cousin. So we had the kids doing all sorts of different things, pottery, drawing, just having conversations. We just took over a space and it was their hub. They could come in the afternoons after school and do some dance. And yeah, it was just really fun. It was super fun. That's good old Moses. He's usually telling me off or something. Oops, sorry. So yeah, that project, oh, when did we do that? I think that was 2015. And it just so happens that at the same time, well, I was starting to plan making a solo show looking at migration. And what I found is that to make, because I find a lot of performance work at times quite elitist, because yeah, like what you were saying, Kri, about how it's the same people who get to go to the theater, it's the same people who get that access to stuff. And so what I like to do when I'm making performance work is to open up the process, show the unfinished thing, show the thing that isn't completely together, show how imperfect and vulnerable I am as an artist, and also with some hope of also getting the insight of the audience that I want to see the work. So, you know, I was born in Jamaica and I moved to England at the age of 10. So the whole of Windows of Displacement is really looking at my journey and talking about people who also have experienced those type of experiences of displacement and other types of displacement. So I worked with a refugee group to just have conversations really about their experiences. I also joined a charity called No Borders Association, or No Borders Leeds, where they do this thing where they have a mobile phone and a folder with different refugees that have signed on. And weekly, refugees have to go to this detention center to sign on to say that they're still looking for work and they're still actively trying to be a member of society. Sometimes they forget, sometimes something happens where, you know, they don't know where the supermarket is or whatever. So people in No Borders are just there to answer the phone and to just give advice or to remind them of something, or, you know, just hook them up with lawyers or solicitors so that they can continue to do their process of becoming a citizen or finding refuge or asylum in other ways. So this is like a system that I've kind of created with when I'm doing things, because I just want the performance to not only be, I don't want it to be this precious thing that is just seen on a stage and is all fancy and things. I want people to be on the journey of the creation, so they also feel a part of it. And from doing that, I've now realized different strands of Windows of Displacement. So I'm going to be doing a project next year called Lead Stories of Displacement, because I found out in the city that I grew up, there's over 100 different languages spoken. And that's just fascinating to me because, you know, we're here in Britain. I'm here over here in Britain. And I don't know if you know well, of course you all know what's going on with Brexit and all these kind of weird, divisive things. And I feel like as an artist, I call myself an artivist because I see my art as activism. And that's, for me, going out with a picket sign and shouting and whatnot, that's one form, but this form for me is about bringing the love and the connection back, bringing back a sense of what namaste really means. You know, I see you, you see me, I am of you, you are of me. That's really what I'm trying to cultivate. So, you know, people's stories have always interested me. And that brings me on to the next project. So a project called Souls and Cells, which I started this year with another artist called Crystal Zillwood. And Crystal grew up in Devon on a farm. So we have like, well, from the outside, it looks like we have very different upbringings, very different lives. But then from, again, conversations, from diving into our research with each other, we learned that both of us, our parents weren't together when we grew up. And every weekend she'd spend with her dad. Every weekend I'd spend with my dad. So there was this all of a sudden we had this thing that was, oh my God, we can connect on this. And also the fact that we both love science and all these kind of things. So from that gave the souls element to the work that we're creating. But not just that, we also wanted to create a workshop practice that involved mind-body centering work and a lot of somatic practices, but also involving traditional dance. Because I've kind of done this thing where I've remembered some traditional dance steps. I don't remember the names, but I remember the motions because it's in my DNA. That's the only way I can really explain it. Alvin Ailey calls it blood memories, and a lot of dances of the African diaspora researchers call it movement retentions. So whilst I was at Northern, I don't think Annika knows this, but I would spend some time blindfolded and I would, you know, just dance and I'd film myself. And sometimes movements would come out that is likened to traditional forms that my more direct ancestors practice. I say more direct ancestors practice because further up the line, we all share the same ancestors. I found out the other day I'm 12% Scottish. There we go. So yeah, you wouldn't know by looking at me, but hey, that's how it goes. We're all related somewhere. What was I saying? Crystal Zillwood, Souls and Cells. So I'm going to show you another video of myself and Crystal just talking about our practice, talking about people that we were working with. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
The project is Art is Process and Process is Art. We're here investigating together with interest in interconnectedness. I'm fascinated about the biology of the body and the somatic experience of cells. I'm curious about exploring it with you because there's a physical instinct that I resonate with that I've always wanted to explore ideas with.
We're coming from a place of how can we fill our cups with a creative process, with shared interests.
My name is Crystal Zillwood.
My name is Akeim Toussaint. What?
My practice is currently, and has been for the last 8 years, making solos.
I'm an interdisciplinary performer and maker. I work with dance, beatbox, spoken word, film.
And exploring my teaching practice in a variety of settings, rural venues, community settings, and more traditional dance spaces.
I would describe Souls and Cells as an expression of human stories and cellular expression.
I would describe it as a hypnotic, dynamic, intriguing movement piece.
There's something else being birthed in terms of a collective desire to move as one, a collective desire to understand the other.
It's really going to be really interesting to bring this kind of curiosity that we're feeling now in terms of perception and mind, cells, somatic work into other bodies and into other spaces. Because I think that's probably going to be when we get the real questions come up to us.
This is like a springboard into new work as an artist.
If I wanted to sum it up right now at this point in time, in this very early stage, to say what my desire is, it's just simply to have time to investigate into these ideas.
I'm going to stop it there because I don't want to, it's quite a long video. I don't want to let you that be the whole thing. So like my main focus right now, well, not my main, it's not my main focus, but the underlying thread in that kind of inspires me is creating creative experiences for people who aren't necessarily artists. There's a saying by a shaman of the Dagara tribe in Mali in West Africa, which it turns out I'm 5% Mali. Malidoma Patrice Some, he says, artists are the link between this world and the next. And I really believe that. I believe that artists are here to give voice to the voiceless, not necessarily to speak for them, but to hold a space and say, yo, you can speak, you know, because we really do live in a world where unfortunately, actually, yeah, it's unfortunate. And I think it's really linked to capitalism. Like capitalism has created a lot of different versions of itself in our psyche as a collective and as individuals, where it's like only that person's allowed to be the superstar. And it's like, it sells the dream. So it keeps us going and keeps us trying to chase a cheese that we don't necessarily need to chase because we are the cheese. We're the gold. We're the gold. I'm finished.
Thank you so much, Akeim. Super nice. So then, Gry, you're more than welcome to ask some questions to Akeim, and Akeim, just make me a host again.
Oh, yeah.
And then I will also pin you after that, Gry. So you're both beside each other.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, I feel so connected with you on so many levels. I think it's both from, you know, like very concretely, how you call yourself an art activist, also even the title of the first piece you showed, that you forgot I was a seed. And, you know, into this kind of both this really understanding the connectedness of everyone and everything and the background you're in, like the cosmic perspective. So I both have some very concrete questions, but I also need to talk about that cosmic background, you know. And so if we are like with the first piece you showed, like the title, I think it's so moving. It's so moving. So can you just elaborate a little bit more on the title, and also how, when you showed the movie, how engaged people were? It seemed like they were genuinely engaged, and actually it can be very difficult to have like genuine participation, also when it's not necessarily like very scripted. So like if you could elaborate on that, maybe in the You Forgot I Was a Seed project, both how you came up with the title, what that meant to you and to the people who were there, and how you created that space of genuine, it seemed like a transaction between people, and also the bravery of participation, you know. How did it happen, and how did you facilitate that?
So it was a collaboration with a visual artist called Anne-Marie Atkinson, and we both really are inspired by revolutionary movements. And Anne-Marie brought to my attention the Zapatista movement in Central America, in Mexico and Central America. And that was their, what you did to bear me, but you forgot that I was a seed, was like their motto. Because, you know, they're being oppressed, but they're seeds. So you may oppress me now, but you're putting me into the earth, and now I will grow into a tree. So, you know, it's just the fact of the matter of how powerful we are as a collective, and the sense of nothing negative can ever really truly eradicate us. So the way that kind of integrated into the project is, I would do this thing with, when we got our core group, because we did workshops in different schools first to see how kids responded and what kids really wanted to continue being part of it. And we got a collective of like 8 children, and we'd meet up with them every afternoon. No, it wasn't. It was like every Wednesday, and it was twice a week. I remember it was twice a week, and we'd just check in at first, you know, just everyone has like, kind of like you have a talking stick, and everyone has their time where they're heard and really received. And that was super important for these kids. It was, especially at the time, because I think a lot was going on politically, a lot of race violence and stuff was going on. I remember one boy telling us that he got told on the playground that all Black kids are criminals. So for him to have a space to share and to be heard, I felt was super important in his development, and his family as well, because some of his sisters came to the group as well. And now, like, seeing what's like, when I go back to Leeds, I see him and he's like tall and whatnot. It's like, oh my God, he's grown. And now he's in the arts. He's practicing stuff. His sister is in a play. You know, there's long-lasting effects because we've planted a seed, which is great. Like when it actually works, it works. And in terms of the elders, when I graduated from Northern, I had this weird period where I was like, oh, what do I do with myself now? And then I just needed something to ground me. And I remember that one of my high school friends, his mom runs the elderly group, and she was like, why don't you come around on a Tuesday and just hang out with the elders? Just be there. And I started to do that, and it literally just made my life, just because I felt, I don't know what it was. I think because of the regimen of at dance school, it's like every day, and having a purpose, and then all of a sudden you don't anymore. It's like, what do I do? So going there and starting that relationship really filled my cup. And then I was like, I need to work with these people. I need to keep them in my life. So that really inspired me to look into how I create art with communities. And in terms of how to hold the space, that kind of came mainly from actually working in the theater world more, because in theater, people sit down and they read the script and they talk about the character and all these stuff. But before they do all that, there's always a check-in and a check-out, and there's people's feelings are really nurtured and valued. And so I try and put that in all my work now, like really talking first before we rehearse, talk after we rehearse, to just not about the work, but about how we feel and what's going on with us. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry.
Well, we have like 10 minutes left. So maybe, I don't know if, I mean, you can for sure ask more questions also to Akeim, but maybe we could also give the possibility to the audiences, to Marie and Nana, Nadia and Toke to ask some questions to both of you, I guess, if you are okay with it. Yes?
Yeah, that's cool. But if you have any more questions, really, like.
Yeah, also agree if you have some more for sure. Go ahead. But just to
maybe
give the
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I can. Maybe I can just like connect my last 2 questions, because then it feels rounded. But so the one was, like you said, nothing negative can really happen to you that will destroy you completely, because the soil is nurturing, like the darkness of the soil is nurturing when you are seed, and you are seeds, like that's the message. And that's a really hopeful, it's really hopeful. And it reminds me of, like, you know, my own practice with Sisters Hope. It's called Hope. And so also relating that to art activism, because, you know, I think there are like these different approaches, like you say. Some are more like, you know, there are some that I like maybe criticizing from a distance, or feeling that it's important that we feel the fear, or the like how urgent our situation are. But there is also the practice of creating hope. And so my question was like, why is that where you engage from an art activist perspective? Like, what is it in you that you are there? And how does that relate to the cosmic perspective? You know, I mentioned so many times that I wanted to ask about that. So maybe I can just conjoin those two questions, and then I shall leave the scene and open the floor, if that's okay, Akeim, to
Yeah, that's
respond
great.
to those.
Yeah, so hope, that's, it's so funny. That's literally my compass for how I make work and why I make work, is hope. I want to install hope in people, because I feel like there's a rarity of it in life. Sometimes there's quite a cynical outlook of life. Like, for instance, I had a child 2 years ago, and I remember saying to someone, oh yeah, I had a baby, and they're like, how could you bring a child into this world? Like, so much horrible things is going on. And I just couldn't fathom that. I understood why they said those words, but I'm not defeated by the negativity that I read in the news. I'm uplifted by the butterfly that just went past me. You know, that's just how I choose to, I don't know, to put my focus. And then in terms of the cosmic thing, in Windows of Displacement, I have a line where I say, who am I? Universal being, man, African, Jamaican, British, Leeds. So yeah, I believe we all have layers of ourselves. And I feel like, I remember, I think it was Terence McKenna saying, or maybe also Neil deGrasse, saying that we, as human beings, if it wasn't for an asteroid or whatever falling on Earth, like you were saying, we are literally stardust. We wouldn't be here. There are things in our DNA that are likened to things that are just going around in space. So on an atomic level, we are literally just space. We're nothing, but at the same time, we're everything, and we're all connected. I just find it so beautiful. And yeah, I really wish that that way of thinking and that way of feeling was at the forefront of life, of this developed. I want to say developed, but it's outwardly developed. It's not inwardly developed, and that's where I feel like the two need to meet at some point. And I feel like that's why a lot of people are so drawn to Indigenous communities now and Indigenous practices, because everyone's trying to find their way back home. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone.
Hi,
So nice. It's nice to be. Hi. I know a few faces here. It's so lovely to see you. Sorry for being sort of not on camera. I was putting kids to bed, so I was running in and out. But thank you so much both for really inspiring talks about your work, which was in so many ways had so much in common, but also has such variety and just comes from different places, but then has this kind of seed or this thing that connects them. And I think it was really beautiful to listen to, and for me brought up lots of thoughts about how I connect with my own community and what community is, and in the way that you were talking about, and you just said it now, Akeim, in this way that, you know, that it can be sort of a larger thing. You know, how do you connect, you know, with the nation that you live in, or, you know, whatever, or how do you connect with the family, you know, this macro micro sense of community, and what does that mean as an artist in terms of how you connect with your audience? You know, is it a macro audience or is it a micro audience? You know, is there a way of how can you, you know, performing or being with 2 people and having an audience of 2, how is that in relation to an audience of 2,000? Or, you know, this sense of, I think it just made me think about the meaning of community and the meaning of connect, how to connect with them, and that you can do that on so many different levels. So yes, I just wanted to throw that in there as well. So a comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, yes.
Hi, Gru and Akeim. Thank you so much for this, both your individual presentations and dialogues, and it became so quickly so apparent what Marie was saying, that there are so many similarities, and I'm so glad that this space here brought you together. Really, thank you so much. I have a question for you, Gru, because of the title of today's topic, making art more accessible and available, knowing that you very recently had a meeting with the Danish Prime Minister and the Minister of Culture. I think that because when I think about making art more accessible and available, I usually think of different communities merging, or something that we addressed already is that art might be quite considered very often quite elitist. So how can different types of art infuse into different types of communities? But both of you doing also art as a form of activism or artivism, this for me is the fact that you had this dialogue with politicians, and very important politicians. I just wonder, yeah, if there's a chance that you can talk about this, or I don't know how possible that is for you now if you're bound by some sort of secrecy, but I just wonder how at least that felt for you to be able to take it to this level, to bring art to this dialogue about art, yeah, to these politicians, and what that means to you personally, and what that might mean to the people living in Denmark, for example.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, first of all, I was very surprised to get the invitation. It was really surprising to me, and I felt, how do they know about Sisters Hope and how do they know about me? So that felt like, okay. And then I was surprised. So it was 44 people from the Danish art and cultural scene that was invited to the home of the Prime Minister to talk about arts and how to move on after the pandemic. And I was seated with the director of Louisiana, the director of Nordic film. There was one artist from each field. So I was representing the entire performance field. There was also, like, Olga Ravn was there as an author, and Jeanette Ehlers as a visual artist, and so the situation is that we were seated at these round tables, and then we had to talk about this, and then we had to present it to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Culture in this very small intimate space of only 44 people. And it was a very important, I think it was important that the invitation was in the home of the Prime Minister, because the backdrop of this is that the cultural scene has not been taken very seriously, maybe many artists feels in Denmark at least. So I had to wrap up and present from my table. And what happened was that, of course, we had been talking about, because that was what I chipped in to our conversation, was what we're talking about now, that arts are really important because it stimulates the sensuous and poetic, that again stimulates connectedness like what we, I think I literally said this, we're all made of stardust, you know, we must realize that we're not separated in any way. And it's so important to me move beyond the current crises, all of them, the social crises, the environmental crises. And then what happened was that it was so well received by these politicians that I was personally thanked for this input. So to me, that created hope. So that's back to hope, because it was the first time, like, so it's like engaging genuinely and kind of like transmitting what you believe in, and then it's received well, and that installs, so on a personal level, what does it mean to me? It installs hope, because again, then the ministries are not just faces on a screen either. It's humans that respond to what they hear, and they respond to an intention. They can maybe feel the intention behind it. So if everyone is connected, I'm connected to the politicians as well, right? So, you know, can you create a space and an atmosphere where that is felt? And I think it was felt for a moment. And that was what was so encouraging and uplifting. And of course, I don't know now if this will change anything immediately, but it installed hope, because I could feel there was resonance. And then I'm like, then there is like, then we are like, our membranes are open, you know, and these politicians' membranes were open as well. I could feel that they were listening so intently and they responded to it. And you can only do that genuinely if you feel it, if you believe it, you know. So I was just really happy that I was able to transmit this message and that it was received. So for me, that was very encouraging, and very encouraging moment. Yeah, it was.
Congratulations for planting that seed.
Yes.
And I think this is just incredible, because oftentimes there's this dialogue between the individual, like the individual practice. What can I do as an individual to enhance other people's lives, my own, my environment, etc.? What can I do? And then we have the artist or the activist who does it on a bigger scale, but then there's the structural that is always a big thing that can be in your way. And here you actually have a dialogue with people who work directly on the structures that we engage with or that inform our everyday lives. So I think that's just incredible, both that you were invited and that you've been listened to. And yeah, I think it's really inspiring. And going back to the word hope, that's really hopeful for I think not just artists, but everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to inform you that it's 9 o'clock, that we are officially finished. So if you want to leave, if you have to leave, you're welcome to. If you want to stay for a little, I leave the space open for asking some more questions to get in dialogue, or yes. So just to make it not so official anymore.
I have to run, but I just want to say thank you so much and have a good conversation. And I'll probably see all of you at some point. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to say how appreciative I actually am. I came in like halfway through your presentation, Gui, because I'm doing this communal project at the moment, working with some motorists, like some young guys, some scooters, illegal scooters, and trying to sort of create like a town walk where they sort of are the binding chords to that, and then working with other communal artists or creators that present something in the space of the town. So I'm just really appreciative about me finding my way through this new way of being an artist. I haven't worked with communities in this kind of way before, so it's something that really generates a lot of anxiety with me. And also that you as an artist have to hold so many things at the same time, working with different people, trying to understand them and trying to sort of forward your own artistic vision of what you're trying to create with them, and bringing them on board and meet them at the same time, is something that is extremely difficult, actually. So it was so interesting to like listen to both of you and your experiences and how you're working and combining all of these things. So I'm just really appreciative of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Toka. I just wanted to say to you, like, because yeah, there was something that happened with Lead Seeds where and because we had expectations of what we wanted the dance elements to look like, and then we had to just let go of them because it was making us not appreciate like the real richness of the connection that's taking place. Because I think for both me and Anne-Marie, because I think it's the backgrounds we come from, we're like, oh, it needs to be like a really amazing and really physical and really beautiful and da da da. But the beauty comes in the actual connection of it, in witnessing and actually being a part of it, the actual journey. That's where the beauty is. And once that day, I can't remember but yeah, it happened one day where we're just like, wait, let's not stress about that. Because sometimes some kids wouldn't turn up because maybe they forgot, or they had some kind of play scheme or something, you know, they want to play football today, I don't know. So that used to worry us. Oh, but they're doing this duet with whoever, and after we gave that up, like the magic and the richness started to really just bubble, and the allowing ourselves to also think on our feet with things, like really, it just really popped. So I would say that to you, like, just focus on the beauty of the connection that you're cultivating, because it's so needed. It's so needed, and it's so appreciated. Like even if there's a child who is like, or someone who is like really resistant, eventually, like when you learn, or when something happens, sometimes a pin drops and all of a sudden you get this rapport with that person. Because I remember we had one kid called Mahmoud, I even remember his name, and he was always moody and always resistant. It was like, I don't want to dance, I'm a boy, why am I dancing, I play football. And it's just like, Mahmoud. After a while, like, because his mom really wanted him to be involved, after a while he started to like it. He still was that character who was like the hard one, but he loved the fact that he was there with his brother and they could just do something a little bit different. Eventually he started to appreciate the fact he was doing something a little bit different. And yeah, it's a tough one. It's really tough. It's such a different thing to just like, yeah, making a dance piece or something like that. That's how I found it as well. But there's something so like amazing in it at the same time.
Yeah, thanks, Akeim. Because you're creating a sort of a free space for whoever wants to be involved and to take that space, and sort of it begins with an interest, and then it becomes something much bigger than that, because they're having the space to be who they are, and that's their creativity that grows, which is like the story. That's the art right there, isn't it? That's the dance.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna have to jet as well, but this has been really just beautiful. I didn't know what to expect, but
So
I love
nice.
what has happened. It's been really nice. So
It's been
thank
magic.
you so much.
Yeah, it really has been magic, and it gives hope, right? Maybe this is a good way to kind of finish this session, to maybe continue another time, hopefully live, whenever, at some point. And yeah, I'm just really thankful you were joining for this event, and I hope, it sounds like you enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's keep being connected. I mean, we are, so maybe sometimes show it. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for joining this event. We hope you enjoyed it. And tomorrow is our final festival day with 2 more project release and 1 more artist talk. For more information about the program, visit www.livingmanifesto.com or contact us via info@thelivingmanifesto.com. Or you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram @The Living Manifesto. Thank you. Then I wish you all a really nice evening and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.